welcome to Let's Talk Too. And this is part two of our discussion with the doctors, Dr. Clyde Winters and Dr. Randy Short, of how the Black Boule betrayed Black Power. Um, and hopefully the doctors will give us as much as they can give us tonight. And appreciate everybody for joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like, share, subscribe button. Make sure you share this broadcast. Make sure you hit Dr. Short's Cash App, which is Dr. Randy Short at Cash App. Make sure you hit Dr. Winters Cash App as well. It's on the screen.
Okay.
Good evening, Dr. Winter. Dr. Short is here, you guys. He's just, he's in the stratosphere, as we would say.
Well, I mean, I want to be fake. Why can't I be fake like most Black people are? I'm sort of like not sure my face the same way Black people don't stand up. You know how Black people don't like to stand up. They don't want to be represented. They just want freedom to fall from the sky like bird doo-doo. I mean, I'll come on camera for a second, but damn, I don't want to be on camera. I mean, I just want to be fake like my people are fake. I don't want to stand up. You know, we coon too sometimes, don't you, Dr. Winters, to see what is it like to not stand up and to just only care about yourself? I mean, it's a vacation for me to coon because being Black is a full-time job. Being a coon is like living in Disney World, molesting kids and shit, not getting caught in little tunnels and stuff. But then, dressing up like Mickey Mouse or dressed like Minnie Mouse and the women trust you and shit. Anyway.
But I'm very glad. Dr. Short got a hat because see what's wrong is this. These white women then found a brother who they want to make into a coon and so Dr. Short has to hide his face because these white women coming at him with spears and throws and they're offering him money.
No, you mean like draws. I've got the spear. Okay, I think I have a spear.
He actually doesn't make me feel bad because I'm the one that have a light sensitivity. So I'm the one that probably should be wearing my glasses or
I have light sensitivity. I'm just saying to you. So the light bothers me. So I like shades. But anyway, let me just say to you that I think the shades look better. Damn, it makes you look younger. When you get our age and you have all this damn white hair, you kind of want to like at least look like, you know what MTV was or something like that. Anyway, I want to give a tribute to Black Power today. I'm going to do a quickie, just a shout out, because, we always, I always give a pork chop feminist a hard time. And that's my job. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to do it tonight too. But I want you to pull up a picture for me of Irene Morgan. And also you can pull up Denise LaSalle, and I'll do Denise LaSalle first. Denise LaSalle was born this day in 1941 or 1939. It depends at two dates. I'll go with 41 to make her younger, which would make her, 82 years old today. She passed on in January 2018, but she was the queen of the blues. And she left Mississippi as a teenager because a Black man had been executed for a crime he didn't commit. And they forced all the Black people down in Humphrey County, Mississippi, and Belzoni to go and see a Black man who had been put in the electric chair, and apparently the equipment didn't work, so they had to keep frying him. And she would always talk about seeing the burn of the cap that they put on the man's head. The people were forced to go to an open casket funeral to see how they fry a nigga that killed white people. And that upset her so badly. She married someone when she was like 12, 13 years old to get out of Mississippi because she was afraid she was going to die. And down in Mississippi, there was a group that was very active, which was Black Power, that I mentioned to you before, called the Regional Negro Leadership Council or Conference, which is the precursor to the SCLC. And in Mississippi, they believed in armed self-defense. And one of her friends, Pastor Reverend George Washington Lee, was shot in the face with a shotgun. They claimed that when they did the autopsy, the fragments found in his face were fillings that came out of his teeth when they shot him in the face. And she had to move to Chicago, and she went on to become a major figure in Black music. It was my honor to write music with her, to live with her, cook for her, and hang out with her. But this was her birthday. And this was also the day she married a Black man by the name of James Wolfe, who I believe died last year or the year before. And he was born in 1950. And he owned one of the first Blacks to own multiple radio stations in the Deep South. Ashe to them. But the main person, can you pull up Irene Morgan for me?
One second.
Okay, now that's Denise LaSalle, a wonderful songwriter, a wonderful person. That's quite incredible for my grandfather to have lived with Bessie Smith when she would stay with my family, and who was the Queen of the Blues, one of the first Queen of the Blues, and for me to live with the Queen of the Blues. That's incredible. That only can happen because of the Most High. And pull up Irene Morgan for me, if you could, and get a nice picture of her. Tell me when you have
Here
it.
we go.
And I want to greet everybody. Thank you. Hit the like button while he's doing this. Liked it. And share. Treat it like your genitals, since nobody believes in marriage and monogamy. Share this video like you do your body, since morality and self-control is. Oh, by the way, I thank God I played a little part in that where she received that prize. Can you get the black and white picture where she's younger? This happened in 1997, where I believe she received $50,000, and she met Muhammad Ali and President Bill Clinton, and she was given $50,000 by the Oling Foundation that she dedicated to a charity of her choice. See if you can get a black and white, because she was a beautiful person, wonderful person. And she was a Wazi. Wazi is my term for warrior sisters. Warrior, W-A-C-S-I, Wazi. Wazis, those are the great Black women. Those are the Black women like Harriet Tubman that took up a gun, or Gloria Richardson, who just died within the last 2 years, who was in Cambridge, Maryland. Remember her, Dr. Winters, where this woman would stand up to United States soldiers with fixed bayonets and not back down. She used to chump Bobby Kennedy, whose son is now running for president. There she goes. Now zoom up on her. Zoom up on this great, great, great unsung person of Black power. We do too honor righteous Black women. When they righteous, you gotta honor them. I give too much hell to the sorry people to not let people know there's somebody. Pull it back up, hold it up there for a second, and boom.
I got one.
You can
I'm pulling up the bigger one.
pull up the biggest one. This is important. I'm gonna do y'all some history, and this ain't ancient history. This is recent history.
Is this it?
And okay, where is it? Yeah, that's her. Now zoom it. Get the biggest one you can get of her. Any of those will do. Not the color. Get the black and white though. When she's young.
Hold on 1 second, Dr. Short. I just got this tab open. Just 1 second.
Mm-hmm. Wazi, Mother Irene Tab.
This one.
Morgan Kirkcaldy. Yes. I want everybody to say Ashe or say Wazi or God bless this woman, this
God bless.
woman,
God bless.
this woman, this great woman, my adopted grandmother, a woman I love dearly. I miss her so much. This woman was born April 9th, 1917, the same day as Paul Robeson was born, and many other significant Black people are born on April 9th. It's a very important day for me, April 9th. And it's a day that we all should remember that the mother of Black power was born on April 9th, 1917. Her name is Irene Tabb. She married a man named Morgan in the early 40s, if I'm correct. But Irene Morgan was sick. In 1944, she had a problem, a woman's reproductive issue. They may have been playing games with her. She was at Johns Hopkins. And she went from her home. She was born in Baltimore in the Waverly section of Southeast Baltimore. Her family was very involved in the community. Her father and other people in the Bonus March demanded that Black people and others get their money that they were owed. They were trying to get reparations. She's the daughter of a person trying to get reparations, people. And she never forgot that. And when she went down to Virginia to spend time with her grandparents in Middlesex County, Virginia, when it was time for her to come back for a doctor's appointment, she got on a Greyhound bus. And back in Virginia and throughout places in the South, when buses were segregated, the first 3 rows of seat were reserved solely for white people. But after the 3rd row of seats, people could sit anywhere they wanted as long as they didn't sit next to a person of the opposite race. So Miss Morgan got on the 4th row of that bus, headed to Baltimore. And what happened, she was sitting next to a young woman who had a baby, a newborn Black baby. And there was no problem. But as the bus would stop at the small towns down the Tidewater part of Virginia, the bus began to fill up until the bus got full. And the bus driver told her, y'all got to give up those seats. We've got some white customers coming on. Yeah, I need them seats. I need those seats, ladies. Y'all got to give me them seats. And the white woman, the Black one sitting next to her, I believe her last name was Childs, holding this newborn baby, was going to try to give up her seat to white folks. But how do you hold a baby and stand on a moving bus? So Irene grabbed her by her arm and says, don't you get out your seat. How are you going to hold your baby and stand up on the bus? And the lady said, she says, I'm not thinking about him. We're in the seat. I have a right to sit here. And I'm not trying to sit next to them. And I'm not moving. They're going to have to stand. They should have gotten on the bus earlier. And the bus driver said, y'all going to get in some trouble. I mean, I really don't want any trouble, but I need those seats. And she said, look, she can't hold that baby and keep her balance on the bus. These roads are narrow. No. And said, then he gets, you niggas are going to get yourselves arrested. I told you I've been nice to you, but, you're hard-headed. I'm going to get you if y'all don't give up them seats. And they drove and she wouldn't give up the seat. And so he says, well, I'm going to have you arrested. And she says, I don't mind being arrested. I don't care if you arrest me, but you better not touch me. I don't care if you arrest me. I'm in the right seat. I'm not trying to sit next to you. I'm trying to get home, but I'm not giving up my seat. And I'm not going to let her stand up either. The bus driver got so angry, he drove to a town called Saluda, went to the police station, and you need to understand, she was fortunate because back then, police in Virginia, I'm sorry, bus drivers in Virginia and throughout the South had police power. They were even allowed to carry guns so they could shoot and kill black people that didn't conform to these apartheid Jim Crow laws that we had. This happened down in Montgomery, Alabama, where Rosa Parks, if you wonder why she's brave, you need to understand that the driver had the right to shoot Rosa Parks dead in her seat. That's how bad it's been for you young people who don't know what the boomers and the silent generation people went through. You can get on the bus, cuss a bus driver out, not pay your fare, and they might call the police. Back then, the drivers could just shoot and kill you. They would get a reward for killing you. This isn't in the big city where she's arguing with this bus driver who tells her, I'm going to get you arrested. She says, I don't care, but you better not touch me. You tell them, don't you touch me. You better not touch me. So he runs into the police station, and a policeman comes into the bus, and he hands her a warrant, but she said it didn't even make sense, just some gibberish. So she snatched the warrant from the policeman and threw it out the window of the bus and told him, you better not touch me. And he put his hands on her, and Miss Morgan probably weighed all of 102 pounds, 4'10", not even 5 feet tall, jumped up and multiply soccer kicked him in the groin and threw him off the bus and got back in her seat. The man literally climbed down the stairs of the bus, gasping and choking. And then a man that had been deputized came on the bus, and apparently he may have been a mechanic, a shade tree mechanic or whatever, who had been deputized. She described him as looking as if he had auto fluid or axle grease on his face. The reason she talked about that was she wanted to bite him in his face. He had made her so angry. And so when he got on the bus, he immediately proceeded. She told him, don't touch me. He grabbed her. She headbutted him and began lacerating his upper body with her fingernails. They had a protracted fight on the bus. It took him about 5 minutes to get a 100-pound woman off a bus. He's about 6'2". When he got her off of the bus, apparently she had found some way to keep him from being able to use his nightstick to beat her. And once he's off the bus, finally says, I'm going to beat in your nigger black head with my stick. And she says, we're going to beat each other's heads, because I know if you think you can hit me, I know I can hit you. The people were so afraid that they let her walk herself to the local jail and wait to be bailed out. Her family paid a bail and raced her to Baltimore to avoid her being lynched. When the charges came out that she was not charged for resisting arrest, she was charged for violating the state's Jim Crow statute. People were so impressed by a Black woman that fought and beat the police and was willing to go to court anytime, any place, anywhere. The NAACP took her case. That's back when the NAACP wasn't totally full of shit like they are today. And a young lawyer by the name, my friend, Judge Spotswood Robinson, took her before the court in Virginia. And she went back to the very place where she had fought the man, unescorted, people, in 1944, July 1944. Here's a Black woman who's beat up 2 cops, driving without any protection, goes to court. When she's in court, she witnesses, one, how badly she had beaten the second officer. She was amazed that she had hurt him that badly. She therefore, when she was charged for violating the state's Jim Crow statute, willingly paid the $160 for medical expenses for the ass whooping that she gave the second officer. However, they also wanted her to pay a $10 fine for violating the state's Jim Crow statute. And she refused. I'm not paying. I was in the right seat. Y'all shouldn't have touched me. I don't like for people touching me. I have rights. And, I should have even had to fight these officers. You shouldn't have touched me. And it says, look, ma'am, we understand. You're northern. Look, you can pay this down 5 cents a week, 10 cents a month, 25 cents a month, $1 a month, whatever payment arrangements you want to make for this $10, we'll accept, ma'am. And she says, how about $0 a month forever? I'm not paying. I don't care. I don't want your payment arrangement. I don't like your law. I don't like people touching me. I'm not paying. So she defied the state of Virginia. They appealed to the Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals. She lost. All the while, this drags from 1944 to 1946 because she wouldn't pay $10 under any arrangement. She wouldn't accept money to pay it. Her case, because Spotswood Robinson had not spent enough time arguing before the Supreme Court, 2 excited young attorneys who had never won a case arguing against the separate but equal statute before the Supreme Court, Thurgood Marshall and William Hastie, took her as a client. It's one of the first times in modern history that the legal team changes just before they go to court. And in a surprise decision handed down in March of 1946, Irene Morgan versus the Commonwealth of Virginia, she as a defendant wins. The outcome of that case was that you could no longer segregate Black people on buses, planes, boats, trains, or any common carrier in interstate travel, moving from state to state. However, that was ruled unconstitutional, and it laid the basis for the modern civil rights movement. One of the people that was very interested in this case was named Douglas Wilder, who went into law on the basis of her case and became the first Black governor of Virginia. Another person, his name is James Farmer, a winner of a Presidential Medal of Freedom, redoubled his efforts to fight for Black causes because of the Morgan decision. Homosexual, Bayard Rustin made a song about her. Martin Luther King had heard about her. More importantly, Stokely Carmichael and many, many other Black people who became activists later were familiar with the case. More importantly, this case would have never been won, said Thurgood Marshall, without a person brave enough who lost her family, her husband, left her. All these things were done over $10, and that she wouldn't apologize for beating the cops up, and she wouldn't pay the fine. It goes further to say that Morgan, her decision, laid the groundwork for the Boynton case of 1960 and for the Gale case of 1956. That's the case that Rosa Parks won. They gave it to Rosa Parks because of Morgan. They liked the story of Rosa Parks because she didn't fight. The Black woman that beat the asses of 2 grown white men. 100-pound woman, 4'10", beats up 2 white men in the Deep South and won't pay, and is carrying a gun, driving her own car. You don't know about her. You don't know that she was supporter of Malcolm X. You don't know that she supported the Black Panthers. She wasn't nonviolent. The Freedom Rides of 1961, which brings Stokely Carmichael, John Lewis, Diane Nash, James Bevel, C.T. Vivian, Stokely Carmichael. All of those freedom rides are based on the Morgan case, the case that Rosa Parks won in 56, and the Boynton case decided in Baltimore, her hometown. Someone decided to act out because they knew Irene Morgan had done it. We're going to do it too, where Black folks wouldn't be segregated or mistreated. There were issues. A man by the name of Isaac Woodard, a Black man, a Black veteran, who had his eyes gouged out in South Carolina. He was trying to enforce the law based on Morgan's case that Black people would not be messed with anymore. This woman is the mother. And this woman fought. This woman raised hell. And this woman was violent. The civil rights movement always carried the implicit promise, if you won't give it to us one way, we'll get it another. Rosa Parks believed in guns. Rosa Parks believed in fighting. Rosa Parks supported the Republic of New Africa, the Black Panthers. She supported every radical cause, and Rosa Parks wanted to be like Irene Morgan. Black power has always been here. And there are other unsung persons like Ida B. Wells, who carried guns, who was advocating Black ownership. Black power isn't just a male thing. Black power is a Black people thing. It's Black women like Harriet Tubman, Irene Morgan, the Black woman, Fanny Pleasant. A Black woman bought all the guns for the Harper's Ferry raid in 1859 that brought on the Civil War. A Black woman bought the guns. Black power is not just Black men, for the damn feminists out there. This woman was a Black power figure. This woman never supported nonviolence. She told me I never got Dr. King. Nobody could put my hands on me. I know someone touched me, I'm gonna have to pull out a gun. I'm gonna fight. I can't take it. It's a lie that the old people were punks. Learn about your family history. All of you scattered in these strange states, you'll find out many of us, our family members, fought with guns. I turn it over to my elder brother, Ashe, Irene Morgan. I miss you. I love you.
Asheo, Asheo, Asheo. You know, this is fantastic. I think a lot of women don't understand that many of the greatest Supreme Court cases, you know, were made by Black women who stood up, Black women who decided that they were going to lead and not be followed. You know, I remember reading a book by Derek Bell. And Derek Bell, he asked two old ladies down south. He said, why do y'all keep on just, you know, getting on these white people nerves? They said, oh, Derek, oh, son, we just like to get on their damn nerves. And that's important to understand. See, Black people have to stand up. Black people, a lot of times we don't feel that what we're doing can really suffice. A lot of times we don't feel that we can really put out that effort, but you got to do it. You got to do it. I'm going to tell you. It's scary being out in them streets. It's scary being out in those streets, being chased by the police, being shot at. I'm telling you, it's not a good thing. Because when you're out in them streets, you know, I can tell you that Miss Morgan, when she was doing that, it was probably like those minutes were like hours. Those minutes were like days and weeks, because you just don't know how it feels. But see, when you get mad, you don't give a damn. And that's the whole point. But see, she didn't give a damn, but she didn't give a damn off the right thing. See, God is great. God is great. You see, A lot of people tell you, forget about God. But see, God is the only thing that has helped us to survive this experience. I know as a black man, a lot of brothers, they tell you that you should forget about God. God doesn't exist. If God existed, why did he let slavery take place? Well, slavery took place because God judges people as individuals. It was individual people who did their dirt. But it was also black men and women, especially black women. When they fought black power, they put glass in your food. They put glass in your water. They burn your damn house down. Oh, you raped me. Okay, Yaza Maza, you raped me. I bet you won't be sleeping tonight safe. See, a lot of people don't understand is that when you read the history of black people in the South, you see in a sense that the greatest fear of that white man was that angry sister. See, yeah, you hear about the rapes, you hear about the people. Oh, what's her name? Sally Henning or something. Oh, Thomas Jefferson. What was it? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. Oh, kept raping the teenage girl. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, that was there. But on the average plantation, most white men, they tried to mind their own damn business because they knew if they raped the wrong woman, your ass was dead. You know what I'm saying? Your ass was dead. And see, what a lot of people understand is that a lot of pork chop feminists, they do stupid shit. They go out there and they do things. They're trying to put people down, attack black men, whereas in a sense, the real riders, the real wazis, as Dr. Wazi, as Dr. Short calls them. These are our warriors. These are right with us. And I'm gonna tell you, see, the real duel, the super duel is a black man and a black woman who are focused on our freedom. You see, it's not something easy to do. You just don't know. You just don't know is that people who fight for us, they suffer a great deal. You see, you may not think they suffer, but they suffer a great deal. They'll try to keep them out of work, keep them in a sense, break up marriages, just like he talked about Miss Morgan. Our husband and family left her because they were scared.
And he got killed, and he was murdered, stabbed to death.
Yeah. Because see, the thing is, this is that cowardice, you see. But see, you can't be a coward. I remember when I was growing up, and I got in a fight, and I let this guy whip my ass. When I went home, my brother said, "Mama, Clyde let that boy whip his ass." She said, "You take him back up there, and you better whip his ass. If you don't whip his ass, in a sense, I'm gonna whip your ass." What could I do? My daughter, in a sense. She always claimed she was such a fighter. I said, "You're a liar." You see? Because one day my son came home and said, KK didn't fight. I said, "KK, you better go up there and whip her ass." My wife said, "KK, we're going to beat the shit out of you if you don't whip her ass." See, I'm not saying it's good to fight. I'm not saying it's good to go out and have to take care of your business. But I don't know about the rest of you black folk out there. But in my family, in my neighborhood, you had to learn to fight. And we don't only just fight each other, see. We learned that if we had to fight in the sense, also we had to fight that European. We have to, in a sense, take back what we want, We have to take back our privilege. See, the black family has been on a very, in a sense, tight line. During slavery, you had the white man allowed us to get married. As a result, many black people valued monogamy. Many black people at the end of the Civil War, many of them spent their entire lives trying to find their family members and stuff. But let me explain to you what happened. Originally, we had, in a sense, the Atlantic slave trade that brought people over here. But after 1800, they made it against the law. They made it against the law, in a sense, to be able to bring slaves from Africa. They continue to kidnap slaves. And a lot of times they would go and, they go and take, if they need some slaves, they'd attack a black tribe of Native Americans, black Indians. Then they'd take them on a boat to Cuba, and then they'd bring them back and say, "Oh, these are some slaves from Cuba. These are some slaves from Bermuda." They weren't from Bermuda. They were just some black Indians in Georgia, Virginia. Okay. But then after slavery, because of what was called the interstate slave trade, the slave was sold at the age of 5 years old. What? Yes. The average slave during the Atlantic slave trade was sold at the age of 5 years old. What that did is that created a lack of memory among many slaves. And in fact, that's how our grandmothers became the griots. A griot is, in a sense, a person who tells the history, the person who keeps the family history. And the reason, in a sense, grandma became the family historian was because of the fact that often grandma may have not been sold, and that grandma, in a sense, could keep telling us stories about our legacies. And so at the end of the Civil War, there were many, in a sense, monogamous relationships. But what we find is that over time we find that black people found it very difficult to maintain a relationship. And the main reason they found it difficult to maintain a relationship is that the only time that a black man, I hate to say this, but the only time that a black man was really respected in the South was during sharecropping time. Because during sharecropping time, you asked the man to bring his family to the plantation and he was respected. But many black people began to move out of, in a sense, off these farms, off these plantations. They moved to the cities. As they moved to the cities, we saw a different situation. We saw, in a sense, a situation where the black family became very, very tenuous. And the reason that the black family became very tenuous was because of the fact, in a sense, is that the black family, the man in the black family could rarely get a job. And as a result, the man in the family had to always try to find a hustle, quote unquote, a hustle. Whereas the black woman might get a job as a maid, a job as a cook, a job doing some sort of menial task. And as a result, we find, in a sense, that the families were dominated or financially by the woman. This doesn't mean, in a sense, that the black woman, in a sense, tried to dominate her man or really treat her man with disrespect. It only meant, in a sense, that she was the main provider in the cities. And those men who could find a good hustle, maybe sell some policy. If you don't know what policy was, like in places like Chicago, they had, in a sense, a lottery. And what they did is that they would have a lottery in which people would maybe 25 cents, 30 cents, put it on a number, and then they would go around and take your number. And then later that evening, they would call off the number. And if you win or lose, you can win a lot of money doing policy because policy wasn't like the lottery today. The lottery today is done by a computer. Remember, the lottery today is done by a computer, and as a result, a computer cannot invent random numbers. A computer, in a sense, can only present numbers that they're programmed by. That's why they have certain states win the lottery every now and then. But back in the day, my mother used to play lottery, play the policy. I go, I take her money, take it to the policy man, and she might win a little cash. Back then, in a sense, a way to support yourself, a lot of times people would have what was called quarter parties. And when you had a quarter party, everybody in a sense would come to the party, and they would donate a quarter and to get into the party. And this was a way that various people, in a sense, could make money so that families could generate some sort of income, because, as I said, you had to find a hustle. Another good hustle back in those days was people playing cards, bid whist, pity pat. And then they would, your mom would have 1 week she would hold a pity pat card game. She would keep a part of the house. The house would keep part of the money. And this is the way that you survive. But we also find, in a sense, is that as more and more black people began to move into the cities, we find, in a sense, is that many of the black people would be married. They would get married, but usually, in a sense, they didn't get divorces. And because they didn't get divorces, we find that many people in the 50s, 60s, you had these families, in a sense, where you saw a woman who was the head of the household, but this doesn't mean that she wasn't married. But it also meant that, I don't know about some of you guys, but a lot of our aunties and uncles, we found out later they wasn't even married. You see, the reason we found out they wasn't married is that a lot of times, I know in my family, some of the aunties, when so and so down south would die, and he was her first husband, a lot of times they getting divorced, and so So she would go down there and get the monies. And she would go and get the money, and the woman who he was living with at that time, she didn't get the money. So as you can see, the family was very fragmented. But at the same time, the family was fragmented in a way people had roles. The Black woman understood that her man might not be able to get a job. And so a lot of times she was supportive. Just like nowadays, if a brother loses his job, his woman, hey, she kicks him out of the crib. If sometimes if the woman loses her job, the brother kicks her out of the crib.
Okay, now let me ask you, because now there were a lot of families. The big movement of Black folks north happened with the Great Depression and World War II. So that urban thing, I got you, but what about, and I'll just speak genealogically. A lot of Black folks that stayed down south had multiple families. Okay. My great grandfather that was born in 1812 had a Black and a white wife at the same time. Okay. He had two. And I had other people that had more than one. Sometimes I can't figure it out, but my great grandmother may have had 3 husbands. And so a lot of Black folks who are concerned about being wiped out, unlike the people today that think killing a baby is power, down there was having a baby was power. Because the more hands you had, the more work you could get done in various places. Let me say to you that my great-grandfather may have had about 22 children by at least 2 women. I believe there are more. And he had girlfriends too. And part of the cohesion in the South, nobody want to talk about it, that family, a man may have a family in Cleveland and a family in Kentucky, and the kids may not get along with one of the wives and send it to another or send it to his sister. And a lot of times these extended families, it worked out where a lot of times in the South, an older Black woman might get land because she may have been able to work in a house or get access to things the man may not. She would marry a younger man to work on the land because she couldn't do all that herself. And because she's older, she might allow him to make children with another woman because she knows he wants to be a dad. Unlike today, when women don't want to have no kids and the man can't just die with no legacy because you with me. Back then, the women didn't do that. If you want a man child, you go out and you make a baby, and I'll claim it. If she doesn't want it or not, you can have this as long as I'm the number one woman. I don't mind somebody else provided you respect me. Now, I'm not here promoting polygyny, but it works better than the polyandry we have today, where the women have multiple men taking care of this. She may have 2 babies or 1 baby by 6 or 7 different men, get money from all of them. I don't understand how that's cool for a woman to have 7 dudes put money in her pocket, but a dude can't have 2 women or 3. And I hate hypocrisy. That's why I hate pork chop feminism. I would prefer polygyny. I'm against polyandry. I completely hate it. And they didn't have that back then. Well, they had it, but actually it was better for a woman to share a man than for men to share a woman. That's why we have so much violence out here. Men don't like to share. Unless they're really good friends, and they're kind of strange that you want to get sloppy seconds and you like there being a sperm convention inside your woman's ovum. Some people can tolerate that. Can you imagine all of them exchanging business cards? Whose scrotum you come out of? I'm out of Winters, man. No, I'm from Ford. I'm from Short. Well, it's nice to meet, man. What's up, man? Well, I don't know. Well, let's just cross-pollinate down here. And if the kid comes out look like all of us, we all got something. I mean, that's nuts. Anyway, so we did have situations where the people didn't all leave the South, because many Black people in the South still own land and property. And it's only with Franklin, I didn't like Negroes, Roosevelt, with the Agricultural Adjustment Administration, where they destroyed Black land owning throughout the South, that forced Black people off their land by subsidizing whites and by not enforcing laws, allowed Black people's land to be taken. A lot of Black people were driven to the cities in those years, which added to the chaos that you were talking about, Dr. Winters. When the Black folks got to the cities, they were in depression. The boom years were gone. And so, yeah, that's absolutely true. But the people who were able to stay, and places in the South where people had a foothold, like in Durham, North Carolina, then these people would have families where man may have multiple families. And this is certainly true, I know, in my family, where people would have different families and different cities. And it's because these people they did not want to be wiped out. They didn't see, like a lot of men today, who think it's cute that a woman aborts all their children. That's unheard of. I think you agree with me, Dr. Winters. It's unheard of for guys to say, well, man, she had to kill it. That was not common. It may have happened, but typically people wanted the children. They needed the numbers, and they sensed that people didn't want us to survive. So children represented hope. These days, children represent a bill that folks don't want to pay. That's contributed to our weakness. And in fact, abortion, baby killing, baby slaughtering traditions that came into our community in the 1930s, and it took off really in the 70s, has really destroyed the whole concept of the role of being a woman. Means you have a very good chance of being a mother if you got something stuck up in there. Nowadays, they figure if something's stuck up in there, nothing necessarily has to come out, maybe except for an STD or a sex toy.
I think it's very important to understand, yeah, that was the way it was. But see, this created in a sense is that my mother, my aunties, these people in a sense, they didn't like the fact that they had to depend on men. Because they didn't like the fact they had to depend on men, they told my sisters, and they told my sister's friends, don't wait for a man to take care of you. See, feminism didn't really start in the Black community outside of the community. It began with these Black women who felt that their man, in a sense, cheated on them, that their man had 2 or 3 families, and that their man wasn't dependable because of the fact that many men had to hustle, even in the cities down south. In those cities down south, it was tough for a man to be able to make money. As a result of this, what we find is that many other women today, they've been listening to their moms. Just like it was 10 of us. I had 5 sisters. Out of my 5 sisters, only one of my sisters, in a sense, remained married. All my sisters had babies. Now they all got babies. Most of them got babies by the same father. But they didn't want to be told what to do by a man. And because
that's a total pork chop situation.
Yeah, well, these people in their 50s and 60s now. So then the thing is that so we had to look at the fact that yes, men could have 2 families, men could have 3 families, but this created a problem that we have that my grandchildren have to deal with today, and that problem is that they do not want to deal with women who have children. My grandson has made it perfectly clear that he's not marrying nobody that's got a child because remember, historically, women had children. You see, listen, in terms of language creation, the first words that a baby says is in a sense is bisyllables. Baba, papa. And some woman 1,000 years ago said, hey, baby, see, he's calling you. He's saying your name, Baba, Papa. Hell no. Those are the first words that a baby says. Baba, fa fa.
Well, Dr. Winters, I have a saying:
Go ahead.
if it's not my seed, I will not feed. Hmm. If it's not my come, I'm not the one. See, I don't like this outsourcing of
You
yeah.
talking about ish.
If it's not my come, I'm not the one. I resent the outsourcing of duties to the guy who didn't get the boots first. See, it says you can't put new wine in old skins in the Bible. I feel the same way about orifices and genitalia. And you shouldn't put new wine in old skin because it may bust. And definitely it will bust your wallet. It'll bust your checkbook. And by the way, if you halfway want to discipline that kid, you either have to fight the father, the mother, or both. And you ain't the father, which creates confusion.
Yeah, but it's
And in fact, it creates a matriarchy. And we may have a matriarchy in our culture, but it's highly dysfunctional. And we have to get rid of it. It has to be destroyed. That's part of the absence of Black power is matriarchy. It is antithetical to Black power.
But see, my father, he taught me. My father, like I lived on 47th Street. It was about 32 apartments because it went around. It was kind of like a V. And so then in those 42 apartments, it was my house was the only place where there was a man. Now these women had fathers of their children, but the only one where there was a man that came home every night and that was married was my father. My father was married to my mother. But see, but the whole point is this: is that we created the problem. We created the problem, and the way we created the problem is that a lot of men couldn't stand up. A lot of men, they couldn't take that pressure. The one thing my father taught me growing up, he said, is you can't be a quitter. You see, my father taught me in the sense is that I'm gonna tell you like it is, Clyde. It's gonna be hard to keep jobs. It's gonna be hard to find jobs. But he said that you don't leave your wife and your family. A lot of us in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they left their families just like this. To me, the average girl who has a baby by somebody, this guy tells them that he loves her. And because he says he loves her, the woman believes it. Yeah, we might know he's gaming, but she believes it, She believes it, I'm married, Quentin's married. We're married men, and at the same time, we're strong brothers who are ready to stay and stick it out. A lot of brothers do not stick it out. A lot of brothers, in a sense, they don't stay there. And because they don't stay there, they create a lot of these problems. I mean, just like me. Like I was talking to somebody the other day. Can't you wear rubber? Can't you wear rubber? Damn. I had 6 children.
No. I wouldn't even ask him for a rubber. Get a vasectomy. Not that shit up. Not that shit up. We need to make a song. Not that shit up. Not that shit up. Not that shit up. Not that shit. Not that shit. Not the shit up. Okay.
That's right.
So let me ask you.
But if that night slip, it's
let me ask you,
baby.
Let me ask both of y'all something.
Go ahead.
How can we get the younger generation to understand, definitely the men, to be emotionally mature, to be able to hold responsibilities? Because a lot of times what they do, they're 16, 17, 18, 19, they're having unprotected sex, they create a child, they don't know how to provide. Now she's a single, she's has a child out of wedlock, and this is where it starts. So,
but I want to say that the teenage pregnancy for Black people is really, really down at the very low level. The people that are having the children are not teenagers. Yeah. These are basically mature adult women and guys who are just banging. And the issue is, for me, if 60% of pregnancies end in abortion, which means you kill over half, seems like you should give a damn about the 40% that make it out of the crime scene of the Black womb. So for it I mean, we're literally not reproducing as a people. We're killing so many babies. So the issue for me isn't birth control, and because we're killing most of them. The issue is the ones that you have, you don't take care of. What we have to say to the young men, and this is a sensitive issue because we're going to have to engage in some dickology here.
My body, my choice might be coming out, Dr.
Well,
Short.
no, my dick, my choice, or my dick, my responsibility. My dick, my accountability. Right?
Be responsible and disciplined.
Responsibility. See, when I grew up, look at this. When I grew up on 47th Street in Chicago. I grew up when the Blackstone Rangers and the Disciples, they were fighting each other. Therefore, in the sense is that I was a neutron. And so then to be able to join the gang, you had to kill somebody. I got shot at many a night. Okay, it begins like this. Let me explain to you how it begins, Quentin. Old school. My father, my uncle. You got a girlfriend. When you gonna get a girlfriend? See, your uncles, your daddy, they didn't want you to be gay. So all the time they're asking you if you got a girlfriend. When you gonna get a girlfriend? Number one. Then on top of that, the bloody Halloween of 1967. In 1967, about 30 people got shot that night on Halloween of 67. I got shot at that night. I saw bullets whiz past my head. My partner, James Harper, he got shot in the back. Luckily, I didn't get shot, but I saw my life come from home. I said, I'm going to give me some pussy before I die. It's hard to say that. Now,
I'm glad Jesus didn't do that.
So what happened is, so I met the woman that became my wife.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't really want to have sex, but because of the fact that everybody said you had to have sex, we had sex. My wife, we had our first baby when she was 16 and I was 18. You see, that's when we had our first baby, 16, 18. We couldn't get married because our mother was hoping that she could keep my wife around and my son so that she could, hustle some aid. But I couldn't get married because back then, a man could not get married until he was 21. And so you had to be signed for it. But as soon as my wife got 18, then in a sense, we got married. I went downtown. My mother came and she signed for me. She signed for me. And then I was able to go and live with my wife. But see, this is it. I have 5 sons and 1 girl. I told my boys, I told them when they were young, I said, you have to use a rubber. And I said, number 2, I said that I don't want no damn scary ass man in my house. And I want you to be ready to take care of any child you make. And so most of my kids didn't have children until they was in their 20s. And in fact, maybe married. But the whole point is that's what
now,
you do.
You're making a point.
Let me finish. Okay. That's what you do, Quentin. You tell your sons that they got to, in a sense, be responsible. But here's something else that's missing today. Back in the 60s and the 70s, even though those women were raising kids by themselves, they weren't raising them by themselves. Their brothers or uncle was involved. See, so then therefore there was uncles and brothers around who could tell the kids how to really be a man and take care of their families. But today there's just women. It's just women, no men around. I'm sorry, Randy. Go ahead.
And so the other thing is, what has to be said to the young men is that your manhood isn't restricted to your dick. I think it's the path of least resistance because everybody has a dick. I hope so. Instead of having like a straw or something that they're pissing through, and that the way you prove yourself is through your penis instead of finding alternative things. And I'm not talking about LGBTQ, things that are positive and constructive that will make you a man. Literacy, having a skill, being able to do something, creativity, something that's positive, because there are a lot of people, let me just say this to you, they're very sorry. The one thing they can do is they can bust a nut just as much as a squirrel can eat one. I like squirrels, but I call that almond joy manhood, where everything is about nuts, or planters, instead of what's constructive. So what? You have a dick. I mean, if it can't lay bricks or do coding, then everybody who is male has a dick. And by the way, it's the same thing for the women. You would think that they've split the atom, that they have a vagina. We have this commodification and objectification of sex, and it without any understanding that there's life, there are consequences, there are STDs, they're dangerous. They're not. This is what people need to be told. Instead of just get yourself some. I've heard this from older people your age. Just get yourself some tail, boy. Get yourself some ass. No one says, hey, look, this could happen. Beware of disease. Just get some pussy. Just get it. Just get. I'm tired of you, young man. I'm tired of looking at you. You get yourself some pussy. I swear, you get some pussy, or you're going to be very. And I've seen people driven to have sex to escape rejection, ostracism, persecution, even a situation. I remember a girl, I had to act like I had screwed her to keep other people out. If you don't fuck her, we're fucking her. Yeah, she's not gonna stay. When she's not gonna stay, someone screw her, and it's almost like they had a list. No, okay, everybody screw someone on this list. We're gonna hand out the tickets, and this is just pure.
It's true.
Hedonism. I saw this with the Greek letter people, in school. I've seen all over where hedonism and debauchery covers for real manhood or real masculinity instead of true patrimony, fatherhood, manhood. And some of us are going to have to stand up and start telling people that being a hoe with the dick is basically a hoe with a nutsack. The only difference is you can't get pregnant, but you can get a bench warrant if you get too many people pregnant. You're not responsible. A lot of folks want to be popular. So, y'all get together and you hear 101 stories about pussy, and everyone's just saying pussy, in the big pussy fest conversations for everybody to feel good. Talk about the pussy you had, the one that squirt back, or the one that had teeth in it, or whatever, had jaws in it, or the console grip. People are having it's bonding, but it's off of sometimes exaggerated sexuality at the expense of women or children that may not have been procreated. Had people allowed this to happen in a more natural, human, prepared situation, someone has to start saying sex feels good, but it comes with responsibility and accountability. And I'll tell you something. When you tell people if it's a hole, light that shit up. Once it gets so wild, as long as it's an orifice, a lot of folks are now messing with rectums and jaws. It basically says even being a sodomite is cool. I penetrated someone, no one did me. And we got to have some rules that sex is sacred. It's not recreational, even though it's fun.
Robert, Dr. Short, stop saying light it up. I played defensive end and linebacker, and that's what my coach said: light that damn hole up, nigga. But my daughter-in-law, she works at the city free medical center, and she said it is full of black men, old brothers coming in there with venereal diseases. You're right, because these old ladies try to put it out. But see, here's the whole point.
No, they don't try; they put it out. There's geriatric AIDS because these old people who have Social Security checks and SSI, they be screwing the young people and the older women. I must admit, once they have dentures and shit and they take them things off, it's kind of like, great adventures and shit for the young orderlies and stuff in there, man. So you get all kinds of gifts and stuff. If you don't mind a woman that smells like beef kidney that can do head, I guess it's fun.
But okay, like I tell you what happened to me in the 60s and 70s.
You know what beef kidney smells like.
What was your experience, Quinn, in terms of your uncles, your father? What was your experience in relationship that they're talking about trying to keep you from becoming homosexual?
I
What was
mean,
they always saying? And your peers.
it was basically like you said. It's like they knew when you was getting some, so you had the look on your face. Oh, you got some. Oh, you had this glow on
That
your face.
face,
So,
that
so,
face, that
so they
cover boy face.
so they knew. And I had some uncles that was very like you two brothers that instilled some form of responsibility, even though I was a little bit wilder and was into different things. They still would take out 10-15 minutes a day. Yo, I see the way you moving. Know what comes with the way you move. Like, I can honestly say I was told everything that I did and every consequence that I did for any action that I did, I was told beforehand. I wasn't one of these people that was naive to decisions that I made and the consequence that come with it, because I was told.
I, I,
Then when I started getting more mature and understanding, like, look, it's getting real, then somebody would come along. I always had people that would always come along and be like, look, you gotta do it this way. Even when I did have my son, I had uncles that told me certain things and being responsible. And even his grandmother and me had a great relationship, and she really was supportive of me as a
oh,
man.
praise God.
And I was very fortunate. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
sit here.
because some of these mothers are witches. Now I have a question because we're an hour into this. Are we going to get to Black Power? Or are we going to stay on the Black family?
No,
Because
no,
we can do a part 3
No,
if Dr. Winters want. If you want to
what I
stay on the family,
what I
this
wanted to
is
ask
Black
y'all,
Power. This is
what I
Black
wanted to
Power.
ask y'all
I
in
know.
reference to this, and I know that
Are there
some people in the chat.
questions?
If anybody have any questions for the doctors, please put them in the chat now.
And,
But I
and
wanted to ask you guys in reference to this overly sexualized agenda. When did that? Because this is clear that this is what affected Black Power, the Black family, the over sexualized
the 70s,
ways that this country. When
the
did that
70s,
change? The 70s.
it changed in the 70s
70s.
because in the 70s, when I went to college, man, I thought that you only had sex with somebody because you loved them. And when I went to college, I just saw people screwing in the cornfields. I went to the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana, and look, we had a rec room. Inside the rec room where you go in to look at TV and play pool, white people would be would be having sex right there under a
Mhm.
blanket, in the
Yeah,
stairway, everywhere, all over the place.
because the sexual revolution occurred. I mean, it started in the late 60s, but it really took off. My parents, as ministers, used to work with the hippies, and people would pardon me, fuck publicly in Lafayette Park to protest Nixon and the war.
Yeah.
Make love, not war. They would literally screw. You know what I'm talking about, Doctor. When they
Well,
would
look,
Right.
screw, they would screw in the park in front of the White House. They'd have like a fuck in, like a sit
yeah.
in, and everybody just fuck in front of the White House.
And
And
it was a lot of lame brothers. And I always thought if you joined a fraternity, you was lame because I could dance. I knew how to talk to girls. I knew what to do. And so then when I would go to these fraternity parties, man, this is where all that bullshit got started. I go
yes,
to
the
these
boule,
fraternity
the
parties.
boule.
That's
That's the
right.
boule. It's organized sex, organized deviance.
And so then when I would go to a sorority party or a fraternity party, these girls would come in there and I would watch some of them. And they would be there in a sense, they would get a drink and they would hold that drink all damn night. I saw them sipping on it. Then the next day after somebody in the fraternity screwed them, next day they come out and say, "Oh, I was drunk. I don't what happened last night. I was drunk." And so see, you had these people going around. You had so much easy sex. When I got up there, man, all I had to do was look at the girl and she's ready to drop her drawers. I don't know what the hell I was. I'm 18, 19 years old. I mean, damn, I didn't know what was going on. But see, the only good thing was that I knew I wanted my wife. And because I wanted my wife, I knew where I was going back to. And they could never live up to that thing. But you had people, I had a job at working in the student affairs office. And I'd been there, and I'd been married for what, three years. And then my supervisor kept saying, Clyde, a brother would help out a sister. I said, I can't do that. So she made my job very hard for me. So it was in the 70s.
But you knew where you were working. It said student affairs.
Yeah.
Damn. I mean, you're clueless, dude. I mean, that's how you got in there.
I was dumb. Yes, I was dumb.
And there's something else I need to add.
Go ahead.
Alongside that, drugs came into our community. The heroin. Heroin hit really hard mid to late 60s, and that changed a lot of values for those people. Not everybody wants to kick in doors or rob people. Trading sex for drugs or using sex to get money became more common with the drug problem, the heroin problem that hit a lot of the urban, big black areas throughout the country. Heroin hit D.C. hardest. D.C. is about the biggest whole-ass city of all time. As I said, the city's shaped like a pussy with a hole in it. I'm just telling you. And it is just nasty. And a lot of people were slinging ass and dick to get stuff. On top of that, porno took off. Porn took off in the late 60s, early 70s. There was a major cultural change. The gay movement took off in the late 60s. All of this black exploitation, things that praise hedonism, even in the music, came out, and it really got big in the 60s. And let's understand something. In 1960, 80% of black children had a father in the home. That radically changed by 1980. And it really began to crater in the early 70s. And what happened in 72? Abortion came in. And on top of that, in the 60s, birth control, Planned Parenthood, and a lot of these people had breakouts using Dr. King and Coretta Scott King and others. There were basically sex without consequences. I want to say the civil rights movement in and of itself was a big freaky experiment. A lot of people in the movement to screw people of different races. Yes, we shall overcome. And I mean, it must have spilled outside. It means it spilled out of the orifice. So much went in there. Okay, so we had a lot of freakiness. The Black Panthers were into hedonism. Yes, they were. And so a lot of people basically felt like they bought into the idea of Dr. William Reich and others that, sex is like breathing. It's nothing special. So you had the Summer of Love in 1967, and whatever white people do negative, black people follow. I was saying to you, Brother Quentin, if white folk ever started eating their dog's shit, black people would start eating it too.
But
that's our private conversations, Dr. Short. Don't tell everybody that.
Well, it wasn't private then, though. It wasn't private then. It wasn't private. Just like you saw Kiki Palmer with that dress on, and she had on panties. Back in the 70s, the sisters would come to parties with the dresses on and no drawers.
That's right.
And
well, that's because a vagina needs to breathe.
And today, I know all of y'all that saw some of these old dames, in their 60s and 70s, and they got XXX, 3 X's on their license plates.
Well, those are kind of Bill Cosby's moved on, and they're bitter.
Yes, sir.
They call themselves cougars, but what I want to say to you is that the sex went crazy, the music went crazy, the culture went crazy, and something else happened. Throughout the 60s, throughout the 60s and into the 70s, the economy bottomed out. Manufacturing jobs and things, places where black men got work, where at least you had to work a job so you're not fucking 24/7. When you deindustrialize an area, you take everything away and people are trapped in the city. The only thing you can do is fuck, and that's not unique to us. That happens in other communities, Puerto Ricans, Irish, other people. When you take everything away, the one thing you can do is perhaps get high and get yourself some.
But see,
And we still, black men peaked in the 1950s for having jobs. That's what segregation. And then they've systematically, since that time, made it harder and harder. It was never easy for black men to have any kind of work.
But see, but you have to understand also that in the 1970s, the 70s was cool. 70s was cool. But by around between 75 and 78, they started firing men from factory jobs, construction jobs, and they started hiring a lot of black women. And
they started using that affirmative action against black men. Right. Giving everybody work except for black men. United States Steel, automobile manufacturing, all of these things began to go to Asia, even to South Africa, any place where they could get labor cheaper than what they were paying black men. And we were the first fired. And we need to understand something. What was going on from the 1940s and 1960s and early 70s was putting white people in suburbs subsidized by black taxpayers in the city, which meant all the cities were bankrupted by encouraging white people to leave and ghettoizing black folks. And at the same time, that Vietnam War, which ended in 75, a lot of money that should have gone to black folks went over to killing Vietnamese, the same way Biden and them are giving money to kill Russians in Ukraine instead of meeting our needs. There was a deliberate policy of benign neglect and disinvestment started by the Richmond administration and continued by Jimmy Carter. And of course, when Ronald Reagan comes in, they slashed everything that people could latch on to that might give them hope or opportunities. The schools got worse. They even changed the way that they taught people how to read in schools. They went from phonics to whole word. This started in the late 60s, meaning that a large number of black men, if you had a working mom or dad, at least if you went to school and you had a teacher or teachers that would help you with phonics, you could read. When they took phonics out of the schools, it meant that a huge generation of young blacks, in particular males, would not master the ability to read. By the third grade, they could determine that they were going to go to jail. Let us remember in 1967, in reaction to the black urban rebellions, they had the first omnibus crime bill to mass incarcerate black people in 67. And that really took off with what? The war on drugs started by Richard Nixon.
Yeah. And see that.
So once you understand, so all of this is happening, and the people who were fighting against the drugs and fighting against the repression were the black power people. By the late 70s, the true people that were the leaders of blacks were destroyed, exiled, compromised, or jailed.
Or underground.
Exiled. You've got to disappear. Mutulu Shakur, who just died within the last 2 weeks, he's been in jail for 36 years. All these people are trying to do, Mutulu Shakur was getting people off of drugs with acupuncture. The Black Panthers were fighting against black drug dealers who were supported by the police, FBI, and CIA.
But see, like Crow said, though, is that the biggest thing wasn't so much heroin, because see, heroin was something for the hip crowd. The hip crowd back in the 70s, 60s took heroin, But what really got things popping was when the Jamaicans introduced crack.
Crack came in the 80s, but cocaine blew up.
But see,
cocaine blew up in the 70s.
Cocaine didn't affect the common man. It was crack, because see.
Yeah, it's crack, and that's the 80s.
When I was teaching school, I'll tell you what it is that they took away teaching innocence, phonemic awareness. But see, the main thing, the second thing that really destroyed It's two things that has destroyed schools today. Teaching in Chicago, number one, by the late 90s, they wouldn't let us teach spelling. We couldn't teach spelling. And they wouldn't even let us teach kids how to write cursive writing. Do you know that many kids today cannot cursive write?
Nor can they read it.
They don't know how to sign their damn name because we weren't allowed to teach cursive writing. We wasn't allowed to teach spelling. And you're absolutely right in the sense is that they wanted people to start writing the way they wrote. You know, that's why when I was teaching at Governor State University, a lot of people couldn't even come to college. I'm talking about white people because they didn't know how to write.
And you know, there's something else. They took prayer out of school. They took discipline out of school. They took music out of school.
Yeah.
They took trades out of the school to prevent black men from competing with whites in skilled jobs across the country. They destroyed what black guys who weren't trying to go to college but could work a skilled job. They took that away. And in the late 60s, and it really picked up in the 70s, they opened the borders and let all these people from Asia, Mexico, and everywhere else, and that has continued. At this point, 50 to 60 million people have come in this country.
In those times, that wasn't it. That's just history bullshit. What happened was that they started taking black men jobs and giving the jobs to black women.
Yes, no, that's. But also,
construction. They had black women working in factories. And what this did in a sense is that, you know, I worked at the steel mill a little while. You got women around there saying, "Hey, we're gonna sell you some pea."
Dr. Winters, if you look at places on the periphery like Miami, you can't tell me that the Cubans and the other people did not hurt black folks in Florida. It did. It grew. By the 70s, black folks were hurting in places like Miami. They were. I'm not talking about Chicago. I'm not trying to take away from where it's not an issue. I'm not saying it's the sole thing. I'm saying it's part. They threw everything at our community. Everything.
The immigrant issue didn't really start until around 2005. That's when they started really influencing jobs. You see, okay,
it depends on where you are. In California, it was a problem before then, Dr. Winters. In Texas, it was a problem before then. I was experiencing problems with immigrants getting jobs before I could, before 2000. They began to do that here. And I'm just telling you, in D.C., which didn't have a giant immigrant community, blacks were driven out of taxis. Blacks were driven out of food service. Blacks were driven out of parking. I mean, there's a lot of things that began to disappear. And I need to add something else. Black young men in the schools where we attended, there's always been a shortage of math and science and computer access. So when the workforce changed around technology, I was an honor student. We never even got to touch computers. Meaning that, so by the time we came out, there were people who had computers from elementary school, the first Apples. I didn't see this stuff until I'm in my 20s. It isn't that I wouldn't have done it. It wasn't that I didn't do word processing as a volunteer for my councilman, but I didn't have my own computer. The digital divide, it's many, many things. I'm not saying that it's not them replacing black men with black women. I'm agreeing with that. But even beyond that, they hit us with everything that they could. Everything. And then they brought in what's called black capitalism. They bought off certain black folks. They did. They bought them off. They tricked them. And so before you know it, by the late 70s, LGBTQ and other things are part of the black movement. And black folks also became an appendage of the Democratic Party after 1972. I'm talking about the elite folks. So we're having a situation, and I'm agreeing with Dr. Winters, in the 80s, the Greek letter people came back to the HBCUs and the force. They had been driven out by Black Power. Black Power and even some sort of Pan-Africanist thing had more or less It was basically dead by the early 80s. And we have since that time had the Boule, we've had feminism, we've had baby killing, we've had the gays, we've had all of this hit us, and increasingly the stupid ass music. Everything we had, even the churches with this tax exempt status, literally everything has been assaulted. And integration, what they call it, really forced assimilation, has been a full spectrum destruction of us as a people on every imaginable level.
I got three questions here, but it's interesting, Dr. Short. I remember I was part of a computer program when I was in the second grade where Senator Lautenberg of New Jersey, he actually came to our elementary school, and the first Apple, we had got access to the first Apple when I was in elementary school, and it was a big thing back then. And
you were in a white school, a white area.
Yeah.
That's why you got
it. I was acting white.
No, but that's okay. But you in a white area, because let me say this to you. A lot of these cities and schools that are corrupt, that are dominated, the unions, I'm not trying to be nasty, but the teachers' unions, dominated by Jews who dominate the social services. They're the same ones that were driving the black men out of the homes and offering welfare and all that. We got hit every which kind of way. Am I lying, Dr. Winters? Yeah. Every imaginable way. Everybody came to get us to mess with man and woman, destroy the family first.
And see, that's why they started giving so many black women jobs and taking away the black men from jobs.
Absolutely.
You ain't got no job. You ain't got no job. You know, what can you do? Just like they're talking about, there's so much employment now, but it's only 3% white unemployment, but it's 7 to 10% white black unemployment. It's still, they're kicking our ass. People still not making money. There's so many people out of work.
That's right.
Three questions here. One is it just popped up. How do we heal from the trauma of centuries of abuse?
That's too broad a question, and that would take a long time to answer. My thought is we should do a panel on that versus trying to answer that with pen answers, honestly.
Okay. The next one is there a specific term that talks about the gender swapping of Negro males and females as a result of slavery?
First of all, let's stop using that term gender because people don't know what it means. And that's why when you see these congressional hearings and they're trying to ask, can a woman have a baby? And they start saying gender and sex and gender are two different things. If you don't know what gender means, you shouldn't use the word. If you assume you know what it is, you shouldn't. Gender, and you need to get the definition by the sexuality people. Gender basically means whatever turns you on sexually is your gender. If it's an apple tree, that's your gender. If it's a dog, if it's a baby, if it's dog poo, that's your gender. There are only two sexes, male and female. Gender is whatever thing, whether it's deviant or not, that makes you sexually aroused and pleases you. That's why there are hundreds of gender identities, my dear questionnaire. So stop using the term gender. It's a trick. The deviants got us using their word, thinking that gender's another way to talk about sex, lying to us about saying there's masculine and feminine and romance and other languages, when it's garbage. Gender really is a term created by a radical lesbian feminist by the name of Judith Butler. And it's all about confusing the shit out of people, getting people to use the term gender, thinking that they're talking about sex, so that maybe sex is offensive, so let's use gender. And once you start using their words, they define it, then you're talking their language. So let's talk about black men and black women and sex roles. Let's be honest. Slavery and all the other ways in which black people have been oppressed have often masculinized black women, whether they wanted to be masculinized or not. Where a white woman, if she was pregnant, she could have her baby. The black woman works until she works until she drops that baby in the field. That Black women have not been treated as women. Black women have been treated as a type of a male that can have a baby. That's how Black women have been treated, except when it comes to them being able to procreate. And let us be honest, the most lucrative plantations were those where Black women started breeding at 10 years old. Where once a woman menstruated, a female menstruated, a man was paid to screw her until she had a baby. Black women have been brutalized. And the only time that they count as a woman is when it comes down to sex, childbearing, or if they want to use a woman against a man. Evidence of this is the Black woman at the Mount Sinai Hospital, I believe in Los Angeles, that they allowed her to bleed to death after having a baby, where the people are begging. Black women die in childbirth because they do not get treated like women. They've been in prison and shackled while they're having a baby.
See, and nowadays, what they do too is that, one of my, I teach a research class, and one of my students, she's in Britain, and what they do now is that they try to, in a sense, encourage women to have cesareans, because see, if you have a cesarean, you can only have 2 babies. After that, they claim that if you have 2 cesareans, they can't in a sense. They can't, give you a natural birth. And see what they're doing now is that doctors are trying to ensure that many Black women during their pregnancies that they die. They're not getting the proper treatments. They're not giving them the proper vitamins. And then a lot of our women after they have their children, they're having post-traumatic stress. And what this is that it starts to make a lot of women feel that they should kill their children.
And they are killing their children.
Some of them are, but the point is this, is that we don't understand, in a sense, is that even those Black women who want to have babies, the European is doing everything he can to make sure that they don't successfully carry their babies for full term. And see to me, I'll tell you like it is. My belief is this, is that if you commit an abortion, if a woman has an abortion, that baby, in a sense, that baby does not die. It's the first law of thermodynamics. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. As a result, even though that baby won't be on this plane, yes, it does, because I'll tell you how. My wife.
No.
I know that.
No, we're going to disagree. When you murder a baby, you killed that baby. It's final. Okay, that's baby killing. We don't agree on that. That's murdering a baby.
My wife, in a sense, we were talking to this psychic. And so when we talked to this psychic.
I don't listen to psychics either. I'm a Christian. That's of the devil for me.
Fingers in your ears, Doctor.
No, my ears are fine. I hear you. Just understand from my perspective, the life is sacred.
So when my wife, my wife was saying they are the psychic said your brothers are really happy. Your brothers are really happy about your life as you're living it now. And she said, what do you mean? Do you mean Sonny, or do you mean Junior? She said, no, your other brother. And see, what happened is that her mother had a miscarriage.
Oh, a miscarriage is different from an abortion.
Let me finish. Her mother had a miscarriage. And when her mother had a miscarriage, in a sense, that meant, in a sense, that baby was still alive in the Crystal City. So those people who do abortions, I think it's wrong if you
murder.
If you do have an abortion. But the point is this, is that baby is not dead. That baby is still in the Crystal City. See,
okay, now the baby has a soul. I agree with that. But it's murder. It's absolutely murder.
That baby is still in the Crystal City.
Okay.
Yes, it's murder. That woman has committed murder. But the point is this, that child has not died, and that child is still part of that family. See, the problem is this. When I taught special education, a lot of the kids, in a sense, had psychic abilities. A lot of times their mothers would put them into, if a kid has what they think is a mental collapse, they'll keep that kid in a mental institution for about 2 weeks. And see, a lot of Black people, because of the fact that Black people don't believe that in psychic stuff, A lot of black kids are innocently put in crazy houses because of the fact, in the sense that the church and everything says that they don't have these abilities. There are people with these special abilities, and they should be respected. Granted,
Well, you know what's hypocritical? The people in the church claim to have all that special shit when they want you to give them money. So why can't the kid have it? So those are preachers that want to monopolize on being spiritual, which is hypocrisy. And it's just crooked ass preachers.
One other question that somebody asked was how was Jack and Jill's formed? The Jack and Jill program. How was that formed? And I guess they want to know the history of Jack and Jill.
Jack and Jill. You didn't have those books. We had those books. Jack and
No.
Jill.
They're not talking about the Jack and Jill. They're talking about the organization for the bougie Negroes, so their kids don't like other black people.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, you're not familiar with Jack and Jill?
Only in terms of what you used in school back in the day.
Okay, well, look, I don't know exactly when Jack and Jill was formed, but what I can say to you is that Jack and Jill, we have it here. I went to school with the person that was in Jack and Jill. These things, I think, were established, 30s or 40s, maybe a little later. But these are for, as you know, elite black people that did not want their children to be around working class or lower income or darker skinned black people. We have had these organizations in our community amongst black people, time immemorial, of people who wanted to be different from the rest of us. You have blue vein societies, paper bag societies. You have them. You even have churches and congregations that we have a place here. I think it's called Asbury, if I'm correct, Asbury United Methodist Church. If you were darker than the door on the church, you were not allowed to come in. That's a black church. You had to be a certain color, or they would point you to the Baptist church. You're too black to come in here. And you have this, even at your HBCUs, people had to submit photos. And sometimes if you were too black, or you weren't from the right family, or you weren't an athlete, you couldn't go certain places. And so this Jack and Jill, exactly when Jack and Jill Inc. was formed, I don't know, but it is for the black elite. The book that would probably have the answers called Our Kind of People, I believe. The guy went to Harvard Law School, and I don't have my other phone in front of me, but it's called Our Kind of People. There are other books, Gatewood's book, The Aristocrats of Color. These types of things are discussed. These have always existed. There's a book by Joel. The name of the book is A New People, and I'm forgetting Joel's last name. A New People, and it talks about blacks and colorism, or at least the whole light skin thing. This exists throughout, and it's everywhere. I can say to you that the African Methodist Episcopal Church has a colorism problem. For example, when they had their first dark-skinned bishop, Bishop Pruitt, who you may have heard of, Dr. Winters, when Jesse Jackson came from Chicago to D.C., remember y'all ran him out? He came back. So did the devil. Look, Bishop Pruitt was dark-skinned. A lot of people got up and walked out of the church. They weren't going to have a monkey, a gorilla, be their pastor. These are black people. They're too black. They rebelled. Howard University had a president, Franklin Jennifer, who went to high school with my father. He's darker than Dr. Winters. When he got to Howard, the people literally almost had a riot, man. People were having heart attacks. You know, why is the university going down? Hint, hint, why is he so damn black? So they ran him out of there. They got him out. They got him into trouble, fought with him, gave him difficulty. They just didn't want anybody that dark leading them. So this dynamic, even the way that black people liked Obama because he's half white, and black women kind of like Michelle, since she wasn't light skinned. They didn't feel like they were black and ugly, and that's part of why Michelle is so popular. Is it's okay to not be light skinned. And when she started straightening her hair and getting the hair off her legs, which kind of made the darker skinned sisters feel validated, you know, she got that. And it's like Kamala Harris, who's not black, has lighter skin. People like that. Don't push blackness. So we've had this kind of thing the whole time. The creation of the HBCUs were for the mulatto children of white men. They wanted their children to go to school, but not with white people. That's why Howard and Fisk and other schools were created. Hampton Institute, partially created by Booker T. Washington, a half-breed, Tuskegee, where the half-breed went to Alabama to set up another school. When you start looking at this, colorism is integral to the black elite, because those people who were mostly free, the people who had the easiest time getting their freedom prior to 1860, were black women that had sex with white men and or were light skinned. The majority in many areas of your free black people were women, in particular light skinned women. So you have places like New Orleans that still has a very strong color thing. They let those black people die in Hurricane Katrina. You didn't see any light-skinned people begging for water and stuff in New Orleans. No, you didn't. You saw dark-skinned people from the Ninth Ward. We don't talk about this stuff. Venus and Serena had to win for years, on the cover of white magazines for years. Finally, Essence, a black woman magazine, broke down and put those black girls, those dark girls on the cover. I mean, it almost killed them. And it was zoomed out, so it wasn't it wasn't a full shot of their faces, because the colorism. Ebony magazine, my friends, had to have black people march and protest and demand to see people that looked like themselves in the magazine. Does everybody have to look like they're from Morocco? So colorism is very much a part. We have a strong hatred of ourselves. We have a lot of discomfort. Even Martin Luther King, when he married, he had to get somebody light skinned. Okay, that just, he wasn't trying to get too dark. He could have a dark. We have this as an issue. It is institutional. It is entrenched in our DNA right now. And in reality, the only time that this wasn't dominant was with Black Power. Black Power, for a short period of time, was a coup against colorism. Had you been living, black folks who were light-skinned were trying to get their hair curly, trying to get dark, and they would only mess with dark-skinned people, trying to escape catching hell because of this colorism legacy. And when Black Power left, and in particular when hip-hop came in, with all due respect, fake hair, light skin, and all this stuff. In fact, the beginning of Black Power dying was Superfly, where you had the light-skinned mulatto man with the long-ass hair, was the beginning of people going back to processing their hair after a couple of years of people wearing it natural. So black self-hatred, whether it's in Jack and Jill, whether it's in the Congressional Black Caucus, whether it's how you folks have voted for Obama, how we support people, or who we look like, or who we want, or how we like Shamar Moore, but we don't think Isaiah Washington or Wesley Snipes is as good as Shemar Moore. That's how we've been, and we have to break loose with that. And we need to understand, even with our negritude, Langston Hughes, a light-skinned sissy, Elaine Locke, a light-skinned sexual deviant predator, Julian Bond, light skin. In fact, black folks in Atlanta never recognized Martin Luther King as much as they did Julian Bond, because Julian Bond is pretty with nice hair.
But Dr. Short, is that, it's only been recently, we didn't know, like when I was going to school, they always thought they was teaching us that W. Du Bois was always right, that Booker T. Washington was wrong. Then we come to find out that Marcus Garvey came over here to be with Booker T. Washington. We found out that Booker T. Washington, he was about people learning trade so they could establish their own businesses. Just
Yep.
like you said, that was the first thing they did in the 70s. In the 70s in Chicago, I can only talk about Chicago. In Chicago, they used to have a lot of vocational ed programs. I know somebody brought a vocational high school, and Dunbar Vocational in Chicago used to be a place you learn bricklaying and all that. When I took shop when I was in school, I learned how to do metalworking, how to cut plastic, all that type of shit. But see, what it was is that by the mid 70s, they took all of the vocational, programs out of Chicago and put them in the suburbs. And they did that for a specific reason, because they knew that black kids couldn't get to that. And see, Booker T. Washington was correct. Look at all these people go and get a degree in sociology, a degree in psychology. Oh, $100,000 can't get a damn job.
That's right. And can I add something? That Du Bois's answer to the people that couldn't go to college is that they should be aborted. Du Bois and the other light-skinned black people supported Margaret Sanger, one of my favorite light-skinned people. Adam Clayton Powell opened the doors of Abyssinia Church to Margaret Sanger for her to launch the Negro Project to exterminate black people in America, brought to you by a light-skinned dude with light eyes and long hair.
That was my father. Stop talking. Stop talking about my father.
And Du Bois was light-skinned, and Du Bois was cover-struck. And the NAACP, even when you look at Crisis magazine, they didn't have dark-skinned people in the Crisis. Du Bois was a colorist. A lot of them are colorists.
Like today.
And they've always been anti-black. In fact, as I said, Martin Luther King wasn't recognized. He was seen as ugly and unfit to be black people's leader. A lot of people were mad at Martin Luther King. How could someone so black and ugly be our leader?
That's right.
Literally, they wanted somebody lighter. And that's why when Julian Bond wanted to run for president, everybody said, fuck Dr. King. Look at Julian. He's tall. Even the white women like him. He's pretty. He's smooth. Not Dr. King. People didn't want Dr. King. And Malcolm X, his problem was he was a nigger lover. He's light-skinned, but he married Black Betty. And people like, he's not playing his cards right. What's wrong with him? Let me just say this to you. Colorism is everywhere. And it's very strong. It's particularly strong among your successful elite. And I must say this, black women are the biggest colorists of all.
They are.
A black dude don't mind a dark-skinned woman if she's fine, got a juicy booty, nice body, nice personality. But a sister, a dark-skinned dude, no matter how cool, she'll pick a light-skinned dude that treats her like she's Leon Spinks and knock all her teeth out, but he's light. And this is an issue. Some of the people who support Jack and Jill, it wasn't created by black men. It's created by black mothers. The same way the biracial movement is started by white women who don't want their kids to be called black. Mm-hmm. Jack and Jill and many of these other things are formed color-struck black women who are ashamed of being black. And they're among the most radical anti-black people. If you look at who's buying the skin lightening cream and getting their hair straightened, I mean, this is happening way more with our sisters than with men. And the great contradiction is that the argument is that black men want white women, but there's never been a point in our history where a third of black men are married to white women. But that is what's happening right now. The black women that are marrying are disproportionately marrying white men. So there's a strong sense of black being ugly. And that's perhaps why there's so much skin lightener, so many eyelashes, so much weave. There's no population that spends money on altering the way that God made them than our sisters.
But they put pressure on themselves.
I know they put pressure. They put pressure on themselves.
They're the ones who do that because, see, most men do not like women with wigs. We don't like all that. We don't like the tattoos. But I think that one of the main groups today that practice colorism is the Alpha Kappa Alphas. Those AKAs, they are
and Kappa Alpha Psi. Because when I was a student at UVA, they wanted to recruit my roommate, who was light-skinned, pointed nose. No, they did not. Let me tell you, they knocked on the door when they saw me. they almost choked. I was so dark to them, and
Get out
I'm
of
darker.
here.
I'm darker now than I was then. They literally pushed the door almost to shove me out of the way to speak to my roommate, and they didn't even acknowledge me. And when my roommate said, "Well, this is my roommate," and they looked at me and they said, "Hi," and they wanted him because he was light skinned, he had wavy black hair, and he had features where he looked like he's an Arab. And when he turned them down, they never came back, but they didn't speak to me. I just want you to know that, and the Omega Psi Phi practices colorism depending on which chapter. All of them, with the exception of the Sigmas and the Zeta. Basically, if you're really dark, you can always be a Sigma or Zeta.
Or alpha, alpha, phi, alpha.
One of the things for everybody in the chat is we try to have a show to stick on the topic when we got these two giants on here together. I know it's a bunch of questions I want to get to, but
let's get to the questions. I'm sorry, but I hope I answered that. I don't know when, but you know what? We can do a show on colorism. I don't need a ring in my nose to talk about it. So
what's funny, Dr. Short, is what I always find interesting when people bring up Jack and Jill, and I hear it, is Malcolm's daughters actually became Jack and Jill girls, and Malcolm,
because Betty Shabazz, although she's dark skinned, was a coon. Betty Shabazz wanted to assimilate. She raised took her daughters to the international school. Betty Shabazz never introduced Malcolm's daughters to the Littles down in Georgia. They don't know their own family. I have relatives, by the way, named Little down in Georgia. They could be my cousins. They don't know them. Betty aspired. She was bougie. The family's bougie. She didn't want. Betty Shabazz threw Malcolm out a few times. People don't know that because we always
the Nation of Islam. All of them was bougie. They always bougie.
Yeah, they were bougie. So Malcolm was not obsessed with bougie. So she was very unhappy. Malcolm was bringing millions of dollars to the nation, and he wasn't spending it on his own family. So Betty Shabazz was unhappy with Malcolm in many ways, and she threw him out multiple times. Remember, not too long ago, they found Malcolm X's paper in a storage unit, and the family hadn't even paid on that. You need to understand that there's an ambivalence. So the family's bougie. Malcolm had twins, and those two twin daughters of Malcolm were living with white men in Salt Lake City. I'm just saying. And then Ilyas's married to a white man. I don't know what some of the others are doing. So this idea that the consciousness of a parent necessarily carries over to the children, that's disproven by the children of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. I mean, what a disaster. Remember
test, right?
Remember when the FBI was trying to get Dr. King to commit suicide? They sent him a letter. If Dr. King had gotten that letter today looking at his kids, he'd probably blow himself away.
But I that's interesting because I taught a class. One of my classes I taught in 2008, I taught a class. And in my class, I was trying to get parents to understand that you can't make your children be you. Your children make a decision on what they're going to be and how they're going to become. Because see, back then and even today, like even today, they want to blame the actions of the children on the parents. Say the parent to do. You can do whatever you want. You can be really hard on your kids. You can give them everything. The kid makes that decision. Kids make that decision because I'm quite sure that my family, my mother, when she sent me to college, she said, "Clyde, don't you mess around with them black people." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You know them black power niggas." She didn't even know. I was offered a scholarship. I was about to go to Colorado, and they was gonna give me a scholarship. And my coach, he told me that I was black power, so I didn't get that scholarship. That's why I had to go to Illinois. And see, the whole point is that it is very difficult. But see, somebody asked the question, why do we always talk about the symptoms instead of, in a sense, solve the problem beforehand? That's because, brother, sister, whoever asked that question, it's something that's been done to us. It's not what we've done to ourselves. It's something that's been done to us through these incremental, aggressive, racist attacks that we experience. Therefore, we had to develop various strategies to try to, in a sense, help us to move away from, in a sense, the trauma. We have to, in a sense, a lot of times we grow up unloved in our families. Like when I grew up, my mother never told me she loved me. My grandmother never told me she loved me. She never hugged me. She hugged my sisters. When I came to her and I hurt myself, I came to her crying. She said, stop that crying. You got to be a man. I remember, in a sense, I told her
She should have been a football coach.
She should have been a football coach. When I told her my grandmother once, I was telling her about my pains and sorrow. And she said, okay, are you done, Clyde? I said, yeah. She said, listen here. She said, you a black man. She said, a black man don't cry. And I do not like no whining black man. She said, don't you ever whine to me again. And so, see, my mother's generation and my grandmother's generation, there's about raising boys to be men. See, and that's the whole point. See, when you're a man, like Quinn, you understand what I'm talking about when I tell you there's a man, your woman always talking shit, always talking ish, but you know what? You try not to listen to it. Your woman will call you some of the worst names on the planet Earth, but you better not call her a name, or you'll never hear the last of it, and you'll never.
Or you'll get locked out of the candy store. They go to sex cot.
You ain't worried about getting locked out of the candy store because see.
Yes, they'll lock it out. They'll lock it up.
If you had a daddy, my father taught me this. He said a woman don't want you to do everything she tell you. Therefore, if you had to sleep on the damn couch, you sleep on the damn couch. Sometimes you have to define your situation as a man. See, that's what happens when you got a father in your house, when you got an uncle in your house, when you got a big brother in your house. They teach you how to deal with it. See, I was married 50 years. You know why I stayed married for 50 years? The shit they said, the shit my wife said went through this year. It went right out that motherfucker.
Well, well, you have to see. Part of the thing that the black male ear has to be adopted to is ignoring pork chop feminist chatter. Sort of isolating your audible nerves from things. So not hearing, but not hearing. It's very important. And but what's the next question?
This is for the panel. Have you heard of the ancestor Steve Coakley?
Go ahead and talk to him about it.
Well, about Steve Coakley?
Yeah, you've heard of him, right?
A little. I mean, I've met Steve Coakley. I knew him in passing. I'm not a Steve Coakley expert, but what Steve Coakley did was he talked about the Boule and it showed how these people can rule us. That's the main thing, and that there's a circle within a circle, and these Greek letter people and others are like a secret dictatorial government that works against our liberation in a nutshell.
And like the AKAs, they dominate the education field. You're finding
and the deltas dominate the HBCUs and in government.
And so what happened is that a lot of these AKAs, they go along with whatever the white man tells them to teach our children. They go along with it. That's one of the reasons why our children aren't learning anything in school.
And the deltas are big in secondary education, post-secondary education, and in government. So all of the people that aren't doing shit in Congress, a significant number of them are Delta Sigma Thetas. They're incredibly, they all stick together. A lot of them are managed. They've got like football length, broad shoulders, cruise missile sized breast, jacked up attitudes. A lot of them are studs. A lot of them. I'm just saying. We need to remember that there's a heavy thing of LGBTQ within the Greek letter societies. People need to remember that the AKAs was started by a lesbian light-skinned lesbian that liked light-skinned and dark-skinned women, Lucy Diggs Sloan. And there was nothing slow about that tongue. So that's who's leading us. This is why you don't hear anybody complaining about gay being the new black from our Boule leadership, because they believe it too.
Yeah, because see, but one of the biggest problems we got is this whole idea of transhumanism. In 2014, the pharmaceuticals and the pharmaceuticals and the medical field and the AI people, they got together and they decided in a sense that they was going to promote trans. See, the reason they wanted to promote trans in 2014 was that the pharmaceuticals, the AI people, and the medical field, they wanted to support this because they wanted to take over reproduction. A lot of people don't know that this whole
and they make so much money off the drugs for the surgeries and the side effects. It's just cash money to get you to hack your penis and your boobs off.
But not only that, the ultimate goal is that that's why they keep saying define what a woman is. That's why they promote transism, because see, they felt that they had to go and they had to teach the young about trans stuff. And so then they wanted people, in a sense, they wanted the kids to be able to think that they could be a boy or a girl. But the only problem is that today, some children, especially in the white community, some of their kids think they're animals. But the point is that this whole idea of transhumanism is about cash money.
But you know what? I think some of those kids that think the animals are right.
You might be right. And so this whole thing about trans, they only support the trans because see, the AI people, they want to be able to control reproduction. They want to make it so that one day, instead of women having children, they'll be the ones that'll be producing the children. They'll be producing the children through artificial means. And
like the Matrix.
Yeah,
like the Matrix. Now tell me, what are the questions?
How far do you think the Boule will go to interfere, discredit the new black media?
They're doing it every day.
Yeah.
What the Boule does now is basically they're the ones that are in the rooms talking to people. What they work overtime to do is deny that the new black media exists. But the new black media is partially responsible for where they are. The new black media has refused to create a real sustained process by which a movement and a constituent assembly and other things are generated. They talk about, but you have to operationalize the information that you're sharing with people. I can know everything about my enemy. I can know about all the problems, but if I don't have a mechanism to combat it, to solve the problem, like the person asked about trauma and healing, I can tell you all about the problem, all this, but even I can tell you what the solutions are. But if I don't have a hospital, a clinician, a specialist to help you, then it's basically intellectual masturbation. Now, certain people have been around long enough; they've collected enough money. The new black media should be more formal. If people were serious, they would do what the people who couldn't get into the Jewish thing in Hollywood created, the thing called United Artists. They combined forces and resources to make something where they were a force, where you wouldn't need them anymore. However, unfortunately, we have a cultural defect among many people. Many people are driven by ego and self-interest and capital desires, more so than uplifting the collective as servant leaders. And I can understand, because we as a people take servant leaders for granted. We don't remember Malcolm X, other people. We don't do anything. So we screw people who love us and we venerate people who fuck us. And until we work that moral, ethical contradiction out and have means to enforce that, we have an issue. So the new black media, for example, when we're talking about this 4321, the minute someone learned that, I should have been able to go to someone that has a way bigger platform than me, and let's push it out. But what's going to happen with them trying to get rid of reparations, until this or some conversation catches their eye and they recognize, hey, I can ride a wave and get some money and donations and be the expert on it, they're going to blow this off, giving time to people who hate our guts. That's a kind of betrayal. That's sort of like knowing that you have syphilis and me not treating you until it gets to stage 3. Why not preemptively stop it?
Not only that, but see, the new black media, I think they're a very valiant group. I think because see, the whole point is that the new black media, let's look at Tariq Nasheed And let's look at the Black Authority. The Black Authority, he's been able, in a sense, to make a little money by being a trucker. As a result, he's organized his own trucking company, and he's been able to have money to buy the billboards. Okay, then Tariq Nasheed, he's been able, in a sense, because of the fact that he wrote that book, he was successful in that area. He's been able to make a little money out of the movies. But see, here's the whole point. Here we got Dr. Short. Dr. Short is a damn fucking fighter. I'm sorry about the language.
Well,
He's
that's okay.
A fighter, but they won't give him the MFM motherfucking money. And see, the whole point. Let me finish. Dr. Short, every week, he get on here and other places, and all he asks for is some support from the people through his Cash App. No, but if we was given, in a sense, Dr. Short support through his Cash App, giving him the money, he could have the freedom to connect with other people. The new black media, they have to pay their own way because, see, we don't have enough black people that want to get up off some cash. They'll take their money to the church and they'll give it to the church. They'll take their money to the whole house and they'll give it to the whole house. They'll take their money to get their nails done and their feet done and get by some new eyelashes. But they will not give money through Cash App. And see, the new black media, we're lucky to have the new black media because the fact is that they're doing a lot of this stuff without any type of monetary support. Like we're on your show tonight. You're not paying us for this. But then people who work for the Creole, work for Ebony, work for Essence, work for the Black Enterprise. These people are getting money from the Boule. They're getting money from the Democrats. They're able, in a sense, to have a lot of mass exposure. And here we got a brother every damn week. He's out here fighting for the people. Every damn week, Dr. Short is sharing with you knowledge, making you feel powerful, and yet nobody hardly want to give him money. Support this brother. That's how you make the new black media strong, by supporting brothers who are out there fighting. People have to pay their rent. People have to pay their books. I got a pretty good Patreon. A lot of people join my Patreon. Because they join my Patreon, it allows me to be able to buy books and other materials so that I can do a lecture every week with Reverend Dr. Matthews. And I can do other lectures and write books. We need to support a brother. If we want to have a good black media, a well-supported black media, everybody right now should at least be given $5 on the Cash App. If 30 people give $5, he got 150. That's all. Help a brother out. I want to thank the people who've given me money tonight on the Cash App. Thank you very much. But give back to everybody $5.
Yeah.
Come on, everybody, you get the Cash App. Give
you're right.
Short $5 at least.
He's right. He's right in the sense that the person asked the question. It takes money to do the things. It really does. And so for example, we want to have a press conference to denounce this attack on reparations. I want to do it at the National Press Club. That's probably anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000. I wouldn't be the only person that gets reparations money, but should I be the only person that pays for it to prevent them from screwing us? So there are people watching this already. We've done several programs. Easily 1,000 people have seen it. If I told you that I got $15, and I don't sit up, I'm thankful for that. But if I were a white supremacist talking about hurting black people, I would have so much money. That white guy that choked that black man to death on the subway got $7 million in 2 weeks. Dylan Roth got $7 million. And black folks watch this shit as entertainment and want everything for free. Freedom ain't free. We didn't learn this stuff for free. It cost us. So I've created an organization called the Black American Constitutional Political Action Committee. I have a fundraiser. I think you have my GoFundMe. Put it up there if you need it, brother Ford. We've raised about $2,040. I want to raise 15. Actually, if I raise 20, that would be awesome. But imagine, even if I had 20, if I spent 2,000 to get the press club and do the stuff to get the press and so forth out to stir people up, that isn't money that goes into retirement or my bank or bill. That's money that's paid for our people. We absolutely should leave that up there for a second. We should do it. I want to let you know right now that Backpack with my partner, we're going after 4321. This is the bill introduced by the racist Congressman Brian Babin of Texas's 36th congressional district, which will effectively bar the federal government from giving money to any city, state, or county that gives anything to Black people. They will make it unlawful. Effectively, Black people will be cut off from getting any money. Basically, that will end up extending to SNAP, to WIC, to Section 8. We'd be dispossessed as a people. Look it up, 4321. You're not supposed to do any bailouts or anything around reparations and for other purposes. That's the end of the clause. Last sentence, for other purposes, means anything that white people want to do to hurt us will become the law of the United States. That's what you're looking at. Any of you that want a Pell Grant, anything that the government gives that may benefit Black people, if they get this passed, would be taken away by law. And people should be fighting it. You're not going to see them do it. I want to say to you that they tried to make pedophilia a protected class under the Civil Rights Act. I, with other people in 2020, fought it. It passed the House, but it didn't get through the Senate. I believe part of what we did helped. And that's with almost no cash. I don't know how many people benefited from what we did with nothing. But that isn't the real world. That's God's grace. Black folk, we're about to catch hell like you ain't never seen. And a part of it is because we fund people that betray us and we starve people that fight for us. I want to tell you, want to see a weak society, a society that doesn't have a strong army or strong defense. And right now, the police murders and everything else, it's because people see us as weak, punk targets, easily hit. And I'm nobody's macho man. I don't call myself a hero or anything like that, but I do have a good mind for fighting. And within hours of learning about this goddamn bill, I've already begun to organize the means to fuck it up 100 times over. If I had a budget like the white folks I know who fight for white supremacy or conservative causes, they get all these things because they have help to do it. Most Black people, we don't believe in investing in our freedom. We'll pay $1,000 to see Dave Chappelle at a show and would begrudge giving me $5. I'm not against you paying $1,000 to see Chappelle. I mean, I like the family. I think, Lisa's mother's a beautiful person, one of my best friends. But there are other things going on. Jews who we have issues with, a lot of Negroes hate on and are mad at Jews, but Jews, if I were a Jew, I have no idea how significant things would be, because people would say, oh, they're brilliant. They just help you. Black folks sit back and say how brilliant you are and say, well, you're brilliant. That's fine. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. And so I'm not begging you. In reality, some of us are old people, so we could come or go. But if they pass this thing where they just cut off all federal money, that means money for school lunches and all this kind of shit, there will be people who will starve. People will truly be hurt. And I'm an old man. I can deal with it. But the younger people, so a lot of you doing nothing or sitting up here or just hearing this is fun for you, hey, it's a choice. There is a storm coming. And if we don't stop it, a lot of folks are going to get swept away as they throw people out of their apartments, as the evictions and things soar all over the country, and no one's saying anything. And it's interesting, they're funding Jay-Z and Beyonce and the CDC, and they're not funding the people who are trying to impart knowledge, well, you're not going to hear it on CNN. You're not going to hear it on Fox. You're not going to hear it. Well, you'll hear it on Roland Martin, but when he comes in, he's going to blame Trump and them. He's going to blame Trump, who's not in office, but he's not going to explain why the people in the Congressional Black Caucus didn't fight this, because those are his frats, his sorors, his divine swine family and friends. We have to do that. So, and I want to say what good I do get done, I thank all the people who supported me. The reason I can speak strong and blatantly is I have some people like Dr. Winters who support what I'm talking about. That I thank you. I love this old man. He has all these books. And if I had it my way, and if we get the right kind of movement, we're going to force them to put his books in all the schools. I see this is the kind of stuff we got to do for one another. But I don't want to take all your time. Dr. Winters, we need to do a part 3. We did need to talk about this family and culture. Can we do a part 3 where we do a decade by decade breakdown, where we could do from 1960 to 2020 and look at Black Power, and we just do a chronological thing? And by the way, I hope you guys like this channel. Subscribe to this channel. I love this pointed head Negro, and I hope that Superman stands for for straight. And so you don't have on tights like Superman, so you're all right. This is a good brother. We have to help him. A lot of people don't help folk on other platforms. If I can work with people and they don't dog me, I talk to Brother Ford about this all the time, about people who mess over you. And it's like, Lord, I could go somewhere else. But he's a good person. We have to support each other and like each other and hear each other. And what you see here is 3 generations of men able to work together. And I will happily come back. There are bigger platforms I could go on. I'm just telling you, I really could. But I like this brother. He has a good heart. I'm so proud of him for this man to just go from, he could have been a bougie asshole from the suburbs of Northern Jersey, and he's down. And he likes cats, not just pussy, but the 4-legged ones too that shed. So we both are cat lovers, and he loves books. He's a very good person, and he's a great host. I mean, it takes a lot to deal with a personality like mine, and I don't mean to be overbearing. I've been activated, and I need to tell you, I'm a heart patient. When I saw that thing that they planned to do to our people, it made me so angry I couldn't sleep. And I have to watch that, because that Dr. Winters was telling me about not letting things make you angry. When you see what they're doing to your people, it tears you up on the inside, especially when you can't stop it. Or you could stop it if you just had this. If I had a couple people doing this or that, we could. I see this brother putting out good stuff on this platform. Didn't I say, hey, man, I'll help you? And it'll grow. Watch, I'll come back. I'll bring my friends. I mean, I don't mind. And I'm not getting rich off of that. And I'm come back and say, man, I got $5 last night fucking with you. Have I ever come back at you?
No. Oh, Doc.
No,
Yeah,
I've never. So we're serious about this. We have to help one another. It tears me up to see where we are as a people. And like I said, I couldn't sleep. I got so angry. I was up all night doing genealogy on all these bastards that are trying to destroy our opportunity to get reparations. And I was texting people. I text Ford. I text Winters, everybody. We got to stop these fuckers. They're not going to take my damn money. I want my motherfucking money for the people in my family that were enslaved, for the people in my family that were Indians that were ripped off, for the land that was taken, and for other people that I see hurt. When someone's talking about the trauma, we're never going to overcome this trauma until we have the money to invest in the healing and wellness. There are a lot of people that have to work every solitary day. They don't even get to deal with their pain. They don't even get to deal with their issues. If you know anything about genealogy and learning about your family, it takes money. It takes years to find stuff. They've busted us up so badly. So we have to spend our way out of. And we have to invest in one another to get out of this hole. White folk who created the United States put money on their revolution to get off of the British. And they were able to get the Spanish and the Dutch and the Portuguese and the French to help them, and some Indians and some black folks. For us to get what we want, we're going to have to make some sacrifices. And that's another thing that has happened. Black power in reality was the last time that a group of black people really tried to sacrifice themselves and their youth and all to help as many black people as they could. We haven't had a movement that was about helping everybody since. That needs to be brought back. That sense that I want the next guy to have a house, to be able to read, to have education, for his kids to be safe, for his woman to have dignity. This won't come for free because we have 500 years of the money being put to prevent that from happening for us.
Hey,
we
Dr.
have
Short,
to be the ones that spend ourselves and buy ourselves out of it.
Dr. Short, just for clarity, I need you to answer this question because I don't think people understand the magnitude when a bill is proposed on the House floor. And there's no excuse that any House, any congressman, anybody from that Democratic demon party don't know about this bill. It was presented on the House floor, not proposed. But explain that process.
Let me say to you that someone who worked in the White House, I told you, remember we had a problem on the phone? Or was it you? No, it was someone else. I called my cousin after being on the phone with a high-ranking person in the Republican Party. And he told me, oh, don't worry. It's a lone congressman. And I had to say to him, you're wrong. He has 13 co-sponsors. And when I sent it to him, his thing was like, oh, shit. That many people? He understood that when you get 13 Congress people, if each of them has 20 votes, that's enough votes to get it into the Senate. The Democrats don't want reparations and the Republicans don't want reparations. If it gets to the Senate, it will pass because Biden is against reparations, as is Kamala. And they will make that the law of the land that you can't give reparations to black people. And the Boule will be quiet because they vowed loyalty. They gave a document in the summer of 2020 that they would be loyal and faithful to Biden for nothing in return. This is what Roland Martin and them have done. So I want to say to you that if it's in committee now and they're working on it. Let me just explain this to you because a lot of you don't get it. But people that are the descendants of the Nazis are in a group called ALEC. ALEC stands for the American Legislative Exchange Council. It is a group of white supremacists who hate black people's guts, who sit down and work on legislation for every state in the country to propose laws to destroy us. They're the people who got all these stand your ground laws where they shot the black woman in the chest and they shot Trayvon Martin, all these blacks getting shot. The same people who wrote those laws up to justify whites murdering black people authored this bill that this Peckerwood congressman named Brian Babin introduced. And by the way, you need to know they're covering as that they have a Negro congressman named Burgess Owens or Owen Burgess, an NFL player. I don't care. The nigga's confused. I could be confused about his name. I don't know if it's CTE, Stockholm Syndrome, or
from Utah.
He's got he's from Ohio.
Yeah, he ran
and he moved to Utah. They have a black coon football player, sort of a Herschel Walker with more polish, who's supporting this bill. And the bill is to make certain that nothing is ever done specifically to help black people as a federal law, meaning that if your city, your state If people say, hey, look, you meet some good white folks, say, I'm tired of black folk I don't want to hate anymore. If they dare do anything to help black people, their town, their city, their county, their state will be cut off from everything the government has. In other words, they're saying if you want to get money from the government, you have to hate niggers, destroy niggers, or starve. We've had bills like this. We had the Dred Scott case. We had the Fugitive Slave Acts where of 1790, 1820, 1850, where white people were required to hunt down and be against black folks. You couldn't even mind your business. If you knew someone was helping people, they'd come lock your ass up for not going after black people. We're already deeply hated. If you ever made people's jobs and lives count on hurting black people, then you're going to encourage everybody, including the Africans and the Caribbeans and other folks, will hurt us in order to get the government that prints the money that we need to live. You can't make your own money. This is what I'm complaining about. And this is known why it was entered on the Congress by a man from Texas. Who's the person pushing supposedly for H.R. 40 in Congress? Sheila Jackson Lee. From where? She moved down to Texas, a Jamaican American woman who doesn't think we should get cash, but she's the one who's supposed to be the big pusher for reparations. You didn't see her big fat mouth saying anything, nor did you see the minority leader, Moist Hakeem Jeffries of New York, a Muslim that supports LGBTQ rights. Go figure. Tell them in Mecca, right? They've said nothing, and they're not going to. And I need to say this to all of you who feel comforted if you forgot that when Amos Brown, that no good punk ass preacher, who's a Greek letter Boule fool, who's a Kamala Harris's past in San Francisco, came out against reparations for blacks in California, the NAACP got $50 million from Wells Fargo. That's what they reported. What you guys don't get, and that's why I keep talking about these goddamn Boule, there are black people, if they gave them money, they don't mind if the rest of us are destroyed. And that's what's happening. They're working to destroy you, and they're throwing coins and crumbs at people who don't even demand the maximum price to betray us. If this bill gets to the Senate, Mitch McConnell absolutely hates reparation as a descendant of slave owners. What you need to understand, the Democratic head, Schumer is Jewish. Jewish people many of them are against reparations for black people, although they've gotten reparations from America and from Germany and a lot of other places. They're against reparations for black people. So as a result, they'll all come together and screw us. So you want to know what the future's like? When our country's about to have an economic meltdown and everything's closing and shutting down, if they take away the little bit of the social safety net, if they get rid of government funding, like if they want to expand Medicaid or Medicare to cover the millions of blacks who don't have access to medical care, this law of 4321, depending on how it's interpreted, would deny medical care to millions of people. That's death. That's genocide by paper, by pen and paper. It says the pen is mightier than the sword, and they can kill a hell of a lot more people on paper than they can with the sword. So that's why I'm raising hell. If you don't understand what I said, if you're just one of these dumb fuck black people that has a head to simply absorb images off of a porn website, be cool. If you've understood what I just told you, you should be very worried, and worried enough to be in touch, worried enough to drop a few dollars on the Black American Constitutional Political Action Committee, worried enough to come and hear our next presentation. In fact, worried enough if we were to do a recruitment session on this platform. Since this is the first one to give me the space to talk about it, as I said to this brother years ago, if you're serious, didn't I tell you? If you're serious, I'm serious too. If you're good, I'm good too. Dr. Winters is a beautiful person. There's still some commitment. There's still some love uh, in the black community. Yes, selfish. Now she'll get out my lap. She's hiding now.
She should. You're trying to make her a star. Stop.
Oh,
Well, guys, we're gonna close out.
Yeah.
Everybody in the chat, we appreciate you guys for joining. Like I said, always make sure that you hit Dr. Short and Dr. Winters Cash App. Make sure you buy both of their books. Both of them are not just intellectuals, but they're both established authors in their work that they speak about. They've put in book. You know, one of the things that Dr. Short mentioned about this bill is this bill should be more important right now than getting reparations. Like Dr. Short said, one thing that we got to understand is that this bill will prevent state, local, county from giving reparations.
And federal. There will be
federal
nothing for black people ever again. It will even cut money for Juneteenth. Everything as you know it is gone. Pell Grants and Patricia Roberts Harris scholarship that I had to go to the UVA. All of this stuff, it's called G-Pop. I think you got that, Dr. Winters. Remember G-Pop? All of that's gone. Money for black farmers, money for black professors, to increase everything will go. It will be, and if they take it to the Supreme Court, the way that the court votes, now this is one time I'll be pissed with Clarence Thomas. They'll vote against it as unconstitutional, and it'll become the law of the land that you can't help black people. You can help anybody but us. It's creating us as a permanent caste to die off. If people don't see that, God help you. I truly believe in God and I believe in the devil. If your eyes are too blind to see that, you're surely on your way to hell.
That's right. So just look out for look out. Go ahead.
Before we close,
pardon me, Dr.
Show that GoFundMe again before we close. The GoFundMe. Maybe I'll let it stay up for a minute or so. Yeah. We got to help Dr. Short fight the powers.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not working alone.
And I'll make sure that particular flyer is in the community section on the channel. So if anybody wants to see it, just go to the community section and you'll see it and know how to donate. If you can't figure it out how to donate through GoFundMe, I know a lot of people don't like GoFundMe, so they might use Cash App or Zelle.
They can use Cash App or they can use Zelle or PayPal, which is my email. There are all kinds of ways. You don't have to use GoFundMe, which is why I give people options. And be certain that this is going to be a fight for Backpack. We met today. It's on. I have a meeting with one of the most important black political strategists in the country. And just over a week's time, we're going to war, and a war that we're going to win. The question will be, are you going to be one of those people 5 to 10 years from now to say, I work with Dr. Short, like niggas said, I march with Dr. King, when it's a goddamn lie? Or are you going to really do something? And in fact, it's cheap in a sense. That's what white folks do that really don't want to get heavy into their white nationalism. They donate. Our people don't have to march, don't have to go to jail, don't have to do a whole bunch of stuff, but they could give. And the scriptures say, give and you will receive, pressed down and shaken together and running over. We will truly receive if we block this. If you let them do this, I want to remind people the affirmative action being struck down last month, as little as it did do for us, affirmative action would have never been challenged in court if a couple of black doctors had spent a few $1,000s to get it thrown out of court, and a bunch of Boule doctors who had money wouldn't give a few $100s apiece to create opportunities for our people in medicine. And as a result, we've got all these people from other countries killing us in hospitals. This didn't have to be, but again, the Boule chose it. Are you the same as the Boule? Are you a Boule slave? Are you a freedman? Are you ADOS? Are you FBA? Or as I say, DAFTA, descendant of Aboriginal and African forcibly trafficked people? What are you in America? Come on. Let's go. I got to do some research in the archives tomorrow. So I've got to stop here. I can't stay up late and beg black people to open their eyes. So good night. God bless and keep you. May his face shine upon you and give you peace. Wake up while you can. You've been warned. To know better and not do better is a sin. It's a crime against your people. And trust me, all the abuse that you encounter day to day, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we don't do stuff when people screw with us. When are we going to tell people to stop messing with us? When? Good night.
Have a great night. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Take care.